So, this is the first podcast between Nathan Kennedy and Anderson Shuck. We are talking about relationship stuff, and we wanted to just get this going. So, here's the first one. Let's go.
What did we talk to? 4,000 people in about a year. I know, like, when we were going out, it was about, 100 people a day. I'm not sure what it was.
It was a lot.
But,
I mean, I know the I remember back then, like the thing you were trying to do is at first you were trying to do all this because you really wanted to get your wife back, and
yeah.
you had all these opportunities with these people that we were talking to, and then eventually it kind of turned into us trying to figure out like how to improve our game, how that we could help other people, and it seems like it morphed over time, right?
Yeah. And I guess the biggest thing is just learning about, like, what we learned: the masculine, the feminine, communication skills, how to spot certain behavior traits in people. I mean, trying to think now about what type of traits. So it was kind of like we were talking that, a woman that was like really, really bossy and controlling. Like that one time you're sitting at the bar and, we go to that place in downtown Denver and you're talking to a girl from Jersey.
Yep.
And like, I just got up and left. I was like, oh, this is disgusting. And she was just so intensely bossy and controlling that like it took her from like a 10 down to a 3 within about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. But talking about that, it's like,
Well,
I'm sure that, yeah.
yeah, well, I feel like that's one of the things that you're so quick at now. Like, it seems like, you can pick that stuff up really, really fast. I remember also, like, you're so good with body language and the NLP type stuff, the neuro-linguistic programming. You're paying attention to all of these nonverbals, and you're able to very, very quickly perceive, like, the level of interest they have. And a lot of times I get into this kind of friendly banter, and that sometimes can go really, really well. But I think the thing that we both noticed is that it gets a little bit exhausting after. There's a few things you learn when you've talked to that many people and that many women in the course of a year. It just seems like the whole masculinity in women is so pervasive. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's like the one thing. I'm sure that we feel that way about women when they act really masculine, that it's a huge turnoff. And probably women feel the same way about men when they're not, in their masculine, decisive. And I think that's the thing. Like, you can predict now in a marriage or in a dating relationship. Like, I'm thinking of one couple specifically that has a lot of money, but the man acts very feminine.
Yeah.
And the woman acts very masculine. And I just know for a fact that there's no attraction there, because you can just pick it up. Like, when a man doesn't act like a man, a woman acts like a man, or like it's the roles are switched, almost like that masculine feminine type of thing.
Yeah.
You can just predict, like, that it's almost like that spark, the positive negative spark is the masculine, the feminine type of thing.
Right. It's the polarity, right?
Yeah, it creates that attraction. If there's no attraction, there's no dynamic. As far as my mission goes, like, boiling this down to some stuff, like, I was taught to be excessively nice. I was taught to be really, 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 like, just give everything, never speak up, never fight back. And for all those guys out there that were raised like I was, my mom raised me more. My dad was kind of not as much of the person that was home all the time.
Yep.
Yep. And then guys think, oh, yeah, I'm just going to get married and make it work. Like, you did not want to do that. You want to be like, make sure you're with someone you actually get along with. And I think the other thing that I learned too is, like, as soon as like a man has a mission and destiny, like, I would like to tell all women that your number one goal when you first meet someone is to ask a man what his passion is. And if you don't line up with it, that you should actually, like, leave that man, like, immediately. Don't even date him. So, like, my passion was hypnosis. It was like body language. It was like the mental aspects of healing, like belief, and like almost like metaphysical stuff, but not like deeply, deeply like wacky, but just like looking for the science and neurological stuff, like Joe Dispenza's things. And I was in a relationship where that was not supported. In fact, it was like anti-supportive, because it didn't really fit into the society or the groups I was in and other things. But basically, it made me give up on life. And like what women need to know is, like, if they don't believe in a man's purpose and his mission and his destiny, that it'll cause a man just to quit. It'll just cause him to give up on life. And that's why you don't want to be with a man that you just support. And then the more a woman supports a man's mission and his destiny and his purpose, the more likely that relationship's going to fly like crazy.
Yeah.
It's just going to work out. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely true. And I think sometimes what I notice on the flip side of that is that a lot of times, if in general men are not essentially supported, or or if there's not that polarity, I think. Well, all right. So let me back up a little bit. Like my mom and I were talking about some of this today. We were talking about, like, we have some guests in our Airbnb, and their son's wife died, and so he's now back in like the dating scene. And some of the stuff that he's talking about is a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. It seems like people are kind of confused about what their roles are supposed to be. And as my mom and I were talking through this and trying to parse through it, it seemed like we don't really know what it is like to be masculine. I mean, I think I grew up kind of in a similar situation you were describing, where, I was raised by mostly women, so like essentially most of, at least elementary and middle school, it was like mostly female teachers. And outside of maybe youth group, there might have been like a male youth pastor or something, but it was essentially all women. And so I was also taught the same things. It's like, be nice, be courteous, be respectful. And those were behaviors that I think in general were good behaviors to learn, but they just don't seem to mesh with kind of the modern women. And it's like women telling, or at least moms telling boys how they're supposed to, engage women. It doesn't really necessarily fit well because the culture has shifted so much. And so I
Yeah.
think I feel like that's part of what so many men are dealing with these days, is that, essentially there's a lot of just kind of malaise towards men in general, and guys don't really know who they should be or how they should show up or what their shtick should be. And so they wind up just kind of feeling lost. And women have been empowered so much today. And to be fair, I think for the record, it should be made known that, like, I've always been a supporter of women's ability to do whatever it is they want to do. But I think when we see what happens with regards to relationships, we just see them kind of suffering, and it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help men or women.
Yeah, like that polarity. I was at an event. Well, just to be clear, I'm like my background. I actually had a stroke because everything was so stressful. I'm 41 years old. Woke up paralyzed in the hospital. Couldn't move, and just realized like the stress of trying to be nice and the stress of trying to constantly fight into kind of an energy of a relationship that doesn't work is actually exhausting. And even if no one understands what's going on, no one really has a clue, and they just have their own judgments and ideas, it's still not worth dying over some relationship that just, the polarity is not there.
Yeah.
And so I think like one of the main topics maybe in this type of thing we're talking about now is just that massive feminine thing. But I've seen like, we talked about, we're like walk into a room full of people and we'll act really masculine, just start talking really masculine, talk mission based, like we have a dynamic, a purpose, a drive, and instantly we cause that polarity and that attraction within like minutes. The whole room,
Yeah.
especially the feminine, just sort of totally responds.
Yeah.
And then you see men that are nice and passive and not like in their masculine, and they have no spark, no attraction. But there's that unconscious drive that just shifts back as soon as you get back into that, that dynamic, that certainty. Like, I was looking up some stuff the other day with the top traits that I was looking at on one blog that were so attractive to women were a man that can't make up his mind, and then the other one was a man that's nice, which to me that's like exactly what I was taught to do, like bend over backwards.
Yeah, these are all really great points. And so I want to thank you, Nathan Kennedy, for being on this podcast, our initial one. And for all of you guys out there, if you want to hear more about different subjects or different topics, we've spent a lot of time in the last couple of years just going over the top. I spent some time in Europe, and just the experience that I had over there was just completely different than what you would expect here. In fact, when I got back last fall, even just how I showed up here was completely different because of the energy that I received from mostly the women that I was interacting with over there. So anyways, we're going to wrap this up for now, but thanks for tuning in and checking us out. And you can always check us out at protogalaxis.ai, which is our website. And, we're doing a number of things. We're exploring a number of areas. So, come back. We'd love to stay in contact with you guys.